Good morning, all. I welcome all the participants for the day 3, session 1 of this FDP on Internet of Things, Product Design, Development and Implementation. Today, we have an expert, Mr. Abhijit P. Joshi from Jain Irrigation Systems Limited, India. Let me introduce our today's expert. Mr. Abhijit Joshi is a civil engineer with masters in irrigation and water management. He is working with J Irrigation System Limited since last 22 years. He is working in the capacity of Senior Vice President, Product and Business Development. His job profile demands presence in every stage of product life cycle, right from product conceptualization, design, development, preparation of technical specification, preparing marketing strategies, capacity building, which includes training of engineers, distributors, and end users, feedback assessment about product performance, and converting the feedback into the product upgradation, then new product development. He also represents AgTech Digital Agriculture Division of Jain Irrigation. He engaged in development of an IoT-based irrigation management system to manage large community irrigation projects. He represents Jain Irrigation in FAD's 17 Committee of Bureau of Indian Standards, that is a BIS, as well as ISO, and involved in development of quality standards for micro irrigation. Mr. Abhijit Joshi is inventor for 6 patents and has published more than 15 articles in national and international journals. He, as a teacher, guided 7 master students and 1 PhD student. He is passionate about water and especially about drip irrigation. He is very much enthusiastic teacher and a learner. So I welcome Mr. Abhijit Joshi for this session on agriculture IoT for resource to root. Sir, you can start with your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wankade, and I'll take this opportunity to thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Vikas. Thank you, Dr. Somani, for allowing me to give or talk something about agricultural IoT. Dr. Wankade, can you please start sharing the folder? I think it is uploaded now. Dr. Wankade, is my voice audible?
Yes, sir, your voice is audible. Let me check the file, whether the file is uploaded. Sir, your file is not yet uploaded. You can start with your oral presentation first.
Okay, but I can see the file in the folder. Can you please check FDP Agri IoT?
Yes, sir.
And anyway, let me start with my presentation. So I'm sorry for the hiccups, dear audience, and let me start my presentation orally by the time my presentation gets uploaded on the folder. Dear friends, when we talk about agricultural scenario in our country, we all know that the farmers are facing a lot of constraints. They have water shortages issues. Water is also getting polluted, at least in the peri-urban areas. That's a major issue nowadays coming up, that what to do with that, the sewage water generated in the urban cities, and natural user for this water is the farmer. So easy getting the polluted water. So this is also one of the constraint. Proper irrigation facilities, non-availability of irrigation facility is one of the major constraints. Of course, shortage of arable land nowadays is also one of the major constraints farmers are facing. Loss of agricultural land to urbanization, land degradation, climate changes. Of course, the menace created by climate changes we all are seeing, like nowadays from last several days. In the desert of Thar, they received 88 millimeter of water rainfall in a day. Whereas in Himachal Pradesh, we are all seeing that on day-to-day basis that what the havoc is happening due to the climate change situation. Suddenly, the temperature rised up to 38 degrees Celsius in Jammu, Kashmir, and Himachal Pradesh, and all the water started flowing down. The snow is melting, and the water is starting gushing out and creating the havoc. So these are all constraints our farmers are facing, and he has to deal with all these variables. And if you look at the water scenario of the total fresh water availability across the world, India has only 4% of the water. Whereas if you look at the population of percentage of India, we hold almost 17.4, almost 18% of the population of the world. So with the 4% of the water, fresh water available, we have to utilize it for the irrigation and to feed 18% of the population of the world. So this is quite disproportionate, and this actually forces us to utilize the water as judiciously as possible. If you look at the water scenario, in almost 75% of the water is used by irrigation sector. Like we have the available utilizable water of almost 1100 billion cubic meter. Out of that, almost 600 to 700 billion cubic meter of water is used by irrigation sector, and in the remaining 20-30% of the chunk, there are drinking water requirements, industrial water requirements, energy requirements. So we are going to face deficit by year 2050, because by year 2050 our population will be double. There will be immense pressure on food production, on the food production. Agricultural land will be decreased substantially by 2050, and there will be a deficit of water. So how to deal with this scenario? There is no other way than to save the irrigation water, to use the available water judiciously, so every drop counts rather. And even if you save 10% of the water out of this 70%, even if you save 10% of the water, still we can sufficiently fulfill the requirements of drinking water sector and industrial sector. So that is why it is immense importance that we should pay attention to the proper utilization of the water sources. Now, when we set 10% saving in at least 10% of the water, where this water goes off, like if you look at the scenario, there are dams constructed, there are several dams and reservoirs constructed across the country. The water is now flows through the canals. There are main canals, there are branch canals, sub branch canals, and then ultimately water starts flowing through the field channels and reaches to the farmer's field. Almost half of these canals are unlined canals in India. So due to the unlined canal, there is huge seepage losses through this canal network. Evaporation losses, because water is flowing through the open canals, so it is exposed to sunlight, atmospheric conditions. So almost 5 to 7% of the water evaporates out. Almost 30 to 40% of the water losses due to seepage when water flows through this unlined canals. Then breaches is the one of the issue. Many of the farmer try to breach the canal, take the water. So judicious distribution of the water is one of the major issue which country is facing. Tail enders do not, or rather never get water. whereas the head people, they take the water, they put their pumps and they lift the water. That's all happens. So almost the 40-50% of the water is lost during the conveyance of the system, conveyance through this canal system. So what is like the scenario? What can we do? How can we save this water? Because this water is unutilized. Rather, this water is degrading the land. If you look at the Punjab scenario, Punjab, which was once a very well irrigated state of the country, called as hub of the agriculture in the country. Now half of the land is degraded because Punjab was having a good canal network, but then due to the seepage and all those things, and over utilization of the water, because when the farmer sees the water, he start putting the water in his land. So that also helps, or rather pushes the degradation of the soil. So that due to the degradation, the half of the land in Punjab is becoming now unarable, non-cultivable land. So these are the scenarios. How can we deal with these scenarios? One of the ways to put the pipeline across the right from the reservoir. But is it really possible to put the pipeline across, right from starting from the reservoir to the main canal, to the big distributaries, to minor canal? Probably not, because all this infrastructure is established now. These are the big canals. Putting all the pipelines will be probably an expensive proposal. So at least some percent of the open canals can it be converted to the pipeline network? Yes, it is possible. If you look at the scenario at this moment, if you deliver 100 liter of water from the reservoir, today only 34 liters of the water reaches to the field level. That means only 34% of the efficiency. So if you convert some of these field channels into pipeline network, so this efficiency would increase from 34 to at least 50 or 58%.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. Your presentation is not yet uploaded, sir.
Is not uploaded.
No, sir. Um,
No, but I can see it uploaded in FD.
because I have shared the same. So I
Yeah,
have
I
just
can see one of the PDF file. I think it is a schedule.
that is sir, that is I have uploaded there, but your file is not there, sir. Your file should be there, sir. So on the left hand side there is a new tab. You just click on that new and just upload your files from there, sir.
Is the screen visible, sir?
No, sir, no.
but I have uploaded it through the same folder now. FDP Agro IoT folder.
No, sir. Sir, are you getting the two files there in the folder?
Yeah, I can see two files. One is my presentation, Ramthal Project Automation Shegaon, and then SSGMCA. Let me check the sharing status of this file. Oh, I see. Sir, actually, because I'm using my organization ID, organization do not allow any presentation to get shared. But
Let me again check with the other participant whether the sharing is available or not.
I
Professor
think, sir,
Vikrantji.
better way I mail it to you if it is
Okay, sir.
possible.
Yeah. Please, sir. Please.
Because that will probably that may take some time, but will be better. Sir, it will take some time. By the time the mail reaches to you, I will start. At least I will continue with the presentation.
Yes, sir. Yes, please, sir.
So, dear friends, sorry for the hiccups, but I was talking about utilization of the water, and I was talking about when we pour 100 liters of water from a reservoir through a canal network. Today, the scenario is only 34 liters of the water reaches to the farmer's field. So almost like 60-65% of the water is lost in the conveyance, and that's a huge loss. So how can we recover with these losses? So one of the ways to put the pipeline network. But then converting entire canal network in pipeline would be an expensive affair. Government has already spent crores of rupees in building up the canal network, and it's not easy to change the entire canal network to pipeline network. That's an expensive affair. So can we do it partly? Can we change some of the canals, like the field canals in the farmers field, can be changed to pipeline? Or the branch canal or the minor canals. So step by step, if we convert and if we add the micro irrigation component to it, like if we ask the farmer to use the water judiciously through drip irrigation or sprinkler irrigation system, probably we can save some water. The conveyance losses and application efficiency would also improve. So how much that would be? Right, 30%, if I change the field channel network into a pipeline network and use drip irrigation, it would reach to 58 or to 59%. So from 34% to 59%, and so and so. There is a water policy of India, and in this water policy, government has taken the mandate that by 2025, our application, our water use efficiency shall be increased from 34% to 55% at least. So that is the mandate government of India has taken by itself, and to do so, they have now operating through several schemes. It is called as Pradhan Mantri Krushi Sinchai Yojana, and under this Pradhan Mantri Krushi Sinchai Yojana, there are several schemes they are operating. One of the scheme is हर खेत को पानी, like every farm shall get the water. So and doubling the farmers income, that is also one of the mandate which this PM KSY scheme has taken. So government wants to double the farmers income. Government wants that water shall reach to each and every farm area. And what is the possibility of doing so is, by improving efficiency of the existing networks. So under these schemes, the community lift irrigation schemes are now getting promoted across the country. Lakhs of hectares of land, or rather most of the conventional irrigation projects which are done through canals are now getting converted into pipeline networks. And also government wants to attach the component of micro irrigation system with it. So the government has made it mandatory that no lift irrigation without drip irrigation now. So you have to adopt drip irrigation system if you want to go for a community based lift irrigation systems. So there are several types of lift irrigation schemes now getting operated in the country. Some of them are private lift irrigation schemes, like few of the farmers, they come together, they form a community. Some
Joshi sir.
yeah, hello sir, my mic
Yeah.
was mute, I think.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Is my presentation now? You got the mail? Sir, you got the mail?
No, sir. No, not it.
But mail is already in my sent box. Anyway, I will continue with. So, dear friends, actually, I was talking about converting the canal network into the pipeline network, and this concept is called as resource to root concept. So, lifting the water from the resource and reaching it to the root level, to the crop root level. So, this, if you adopt this kind of concept, your water application efficiency would increase from 34% to almost 89%. Government of India has taken the mandate in its water policy to increase or to improve the water use efficiency from 34% to at least 55% by year 2025. And for to do and to achieve this, Government of India has promoted several schemes. It is called as Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. So under this scheme, under the scheme of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, there is a scheme called Har Khet Ko Pani. That means every farm shall get water, and doubling the farmer's income is one of the another scheme. So government wants to push these schemes, and that is why government is now pushing to go for community-based irrigation systems. So what these community-based irrigation systems are? You know, every individual farmer has his own water source and he irrigates his own farm. But then half of the area is rainfed. Almost, 64% of the country's area is a rainfed farming area. So can these rainfed farmers also get an assured irrigation supply? So with this, with the pipeline network and with this resource to root scheme, we can assure that every farmer can get water. When the farmer gets an assured water supply, he can select the crop of his requirement where he can get a higher yield and his income will improve. Because it is a pipeline network, there is no land acquisition requirement. Pipeline will go underground, and water productivity will increase many folds. Like, we talk about productivity in terms of yields, like we talk about kilogram per hectare yield. But rather than talking in terms of kilogram per hectare or quintal per hectare area, governments now wants to talk in the terms of water productivity, like kilogram per unit or per meter cube of water. What is the productivity in that means how much water you are utilizing to get the yield of several, say, quintals or kilograms. And in doing so, his farmers' income will also increase, and we are also assuring the judicious distribution of the water to each and every farmer. Unlike the canal network where the tail enders usually do not get water, then there will be several environmental benefits which the farmer will also get. So there will not be any runoff through the field. There will be no leaching, no soil degradation problems. It saves energy. So these are the benefits of resource to root scheme. Jain Irrigation has done several projects under this term of resource to root. One of the project which we have done is in Karnataka, which is world's largest community-based irrigation project. Sir, have you received the mail?
Yes, sir. I have shared the screen, sir. Please check. Yeah.
Okay. Fine, thank you, sir. Can you go ahead? Next slide, please. Okay, so next slide. So, yeah, this is the world's largest community-based micro irrigation scheme. Actually, this is in the Hungun Taluk of Bagalkot district of Karnataka, and I will try to explain how this scheme works. Where the Agri-IoT comes into the picture and why Agri-IoT is very much important in operating such type of community-based irrigation systems. Can you go for next slide, please, sir? Next slide. Okay, so the project was earlier designed for open canal network system. The command area was almost 12,000 hectares. And then we propose to go for this resource to root scheme here. So from the Narayanpur reservoir, from the Narayan Sagar reservoir, entire the pipeline is laid through the command area, and the command area is increased from 12,000 hectares to 24,000 hectares. So doubling the command area. So more number of beneficiaries, more number of farmers will get benefit of the scheme. So next slide, please. So let me explain you the features of the schemes. The total area is 24,000 hectare, out of which we have done, Jain Irrigation has done 12,300 hectares of area. The total cost is 800 crore rupees. Here the beauty of the scheme is each and every farmer has a hydraulically operated or electrically operated valves in his field. They operate automatically as per the given schedules. This entire scheme is controlled and monitored through a web-based automated system, a web-based SCADA system, I will say. Centralized pumping, rather than each and every farmer having his own pump and then depending on the electrical supplies, these type of schemes, the beauty of the community irrigation systems is government is giving them the centralized electrical feeders. So due to the centralized electrical feeders, there is an assurance of 24 hours of electricity available. Usually the scenario in Indian agriculture is, farmers hardly get 6 to 8 hours of electricity available, and he has to manage his irrigation within the 6 to 8 hours. Here, rather than depending on 6 to 8 hours, 24 hours of electricity is available. And then these schemes are operated on a PPP basis, public private. So we form the water user associations, and then the entire scheme is operated through these water user associations. And then the another beauty of this project is the bidder, the contractor, has to provide linkages. Post harvest linkages is like, you are providing an irrigation system to the farmers who were doing rain-fed agriculture. So naturally these farmers are illiterate or novice, they do not know where to sell their produce. So bidder has, our government has a responsibility to develop the processing industry, to call the processing industry, attach them with the farming community and create a market for their produce. So overall, this is the beauty of this type of community based irrigation system. Sir, can you move from next slide, please? So this entire area, the 12,000 hectares of area, is divided into 4 zones depending on topographical features of the area. We designed a pipeline network, and this entire 12,300 hectares area is divided into small blocks of 100 hectares. So there are almost 129 blocks of 100 hectares in this area, and each and every block is provided with the sensors, with the pressure transmitters, with the flow transmitters, and IoT devices. I'll be talking about this. So next slide, please. So next slide. So this is in nutshell the scenario of the project. This is a micro irrigation system project. So we are providing drip irrigation system to each and every farmer. They have to lay the drip irrigation system in the farm. There are central pumping stations. So 4 zones has 4 pumping stations. All these pumps are operated through variable frequency drive pumps. In pumping station, there are pressure transmitters, ultrasonic flow transmitters, level transmitter to measure the level of the water in the reservoir, differential pressure switches used to operate the filters. We have provided their primary filters because the water which is flowing through the canal or through the reservoir carries a lot of silt, soil, debris. So this debris or dirt is to be filtered out before it is provided to the system, because micro irrigation system is more susceptible for blockages or clogging. So we have to take care of the quality of the water. So water is to be filtered. So automatically operated irrigation filters are provided. These are the large irrigation filters. And on the secondary, on the field levels at the 100 hectare block area, there are secondary filters also provided. And these filters are to be cleaned frequently, because over the period of time the dirt will settle on the screens of the filters. So these filters are provided with the automatic cleaning arrangements. So next slide, please. In the field area, there are digital water meters, pressure transmitters provided to each 100 hectares of area. Then there are digital rain sensors provided to one rain sensor for 4 blocks, like for 400 hectares of area, one rain sensor and one weather station per zone. So we are observing the weather conditions. We're observing the rain, because when the rain is falling, you do not need to operate your irrigation system. So we automatically sense that there is a rain in the specific area and stop the walls in that area. So for that purpose, we put rain sensors. There are pressure and flow transmitters. We continuously monitor pressure and flow conditions, because for a water distribution network, the health indicator for any kind of distribution network is pressure and flow conditions. So you need to continuously monitor what is the pressure, what is the flow, because in a remote area, there is always a chance that farmer may open up his wall, or the pipeline may break down, or something may happen, or sometimes wall is not opened up. So you can observe the pressure and flow. If there are some alarming situations, then immediately alarms will be generated, so that the field technicians can take care of this requirements. Then there are control walls provided, so each and every farmer will get the wall, and apart from that, every block of 100 hectare will have a master control wall. So there are several such control walls. Then all these operations are controlled through we call it as a IRI-Connect master or a gateway. This is a GSM based gateway. There are 22 such gateways in this 12,300 hectare area, and this gateway communicates with the server. And then there is IRI-Connect Pro RTU provided to each and every farmer, or rather we club 2 or 3 farmers together where the walls are nearby, and connect these walls to the RTUs. I will be talking about how the RTUs are and how it works in the next slide. So can you go for the next slide, please? This is a video. Sir, can we play the video? I think there is some issue in video playing. But anyway, this video was describing, how the system works there for this project. We'll go for next slide, sir. If the video is not okay. So friends, let us talk about the area of your interest now. I was talking about how these community-based projects are, how much important it is, because government has decided to convert each and every dam network into the resource to root concept through the pipeline network wherever it is possible. And almost like IGNP canal is now getting converted into pipeline network. In Himachal Pradesh, the Bhakra Bias Nahar Pariyojana, the Bhakra canal is now getting converted into the pipeline network, because the problem in Himachal Pradesh irrigation systems was, it is a deep valley, it's a Himalayan terrain, and if water flows through the valleys, through the canals, and the upper reach farmers will never get water. So using this pipeline network and pumping system, we are now providing water to the upper reaches of the Himalayan region. Similar projects we have done also. Similar projects we have done in Karnataka. Some of the projects we are doing in Tamil Nadu as well, in Kerala. So the operation and maintenance and monitoring of this system is done through a web-based system, which we called as IRI-Care irrigation system. So when we talk about utilization of agricultural IoT systems for these community irrigation projects, we need to think about why we need agricultural IoT. What are the challenges we can face in implementation of agricultural IoT? How the system architecture would be? What are the different components of this Ag IoT? Validation and demonstration, of course, is a very important aspect of any Ag IoT. And control and monitoring. How can we control these projects and monitor through using this Ag IoT. Next slide, sir. So when we talk about agricultural IoT, first of all, why we need Ag IoT? Because we are talking about the large area, 12,300 hectares of area or more than that. In Madhya Pradesh, the projects which we are doing is 98,000 hectares of area. So it's a remote area. There is no electricity available. Thousands of farmers you have to cover, provide water to thousands of farmers. So you have to operate thousands of walls. You have to stop the wall when the crop is harvested. So you need to know what crop the farmer is sowing and when it is going to harvested, because once the crop is harvested, there is no point in opening up his walls. So you need to have 24/7 monitoring system. You need to continuously monitor the pressure and flow conditions. You have to do the trend analysis. Government always wants reports, about how much crop is now sown, how much irrigation you have done, what is the irrigation efficiency, how much water per farmer is given, how much yield per cubic meter of water we are getting. So this kind of reports government expects. And of course, in such a huge areas, there is always possibility of getting some faults. Pipeline may break down, some farmer may open up their wall manually. This kind of scenarios happens in Indian agricultural systems. So you need to continuously monitor and check. Suppose a system is designed to operate, say, 5 walls at a time, and suddenly you observe that the flow is increasing, and pressure is going down. That means either the pipeline is broken down, or some farmers has opened up their wall manually to get the water, or some water thefting is happening in that area. So you need to have a diagnosis system to continuously monitor this kind of the scenarios happening in the field areas. So that is why you need to have a very efficient agricultural IoT system using some sensor networks and control walls to operate the systems. So next slide, please. So what are the challenges you face in doing or implementing agricultural IoT in this huge area? The first challenge is there is no electricity available in the fields. You hardly get electricity available. So without electricity, operating an IoT system, you all know, if you are doing or working with the sensors, it requires they are power hungry. If you are going for an analog type of pressure sensors, it is power hungry. You need to continuously do. Wiring is not possible. You cannot put the wiring network throughout the area of, say, 1,000 or 10,000 hectares of area. You cannot lay. 12,000 hectares of area is like covering almost, we are covering 33 villages in that area. So 33 villages, you cannot lay the wiring. Then line of sight is not possible because agriculture area is like undulating area. There are crops in between, big trees in between, and we all know that the green cover is an enemy for the radio communication. It absorbs the RF frequency. So when there is a large green coverage or the crop coverage, you may not get the clear line of sight. So you have to deal with this line of sight issue. You need to have a centralized control system, because there are several users of the system. Government officer also wants to see what is happening in the field. The troubleshooting, the technician also wants to see what is happening in the field. Farmer also wants to see what is happening in his field when he is going to get the water. The administrator of the system, who is maintaining or pools for the irrigation, also wants to see and analyze. So remote monitoring and control is very important, and it is a very challenging aspect of this providing Ag IoT, because you cannot go for a very high frequency communication. You cannot expect that every 10 seconds you want to get the data, and because then when there is no electricity available, you are dependent on the solar power, and you have to or the battery power. You have to think of the scheme wherein you can utilize this battery or the power judiciously, optimally, and that too when there is an emergency situation. You cannot say that even though the pipeline is broken down and my pressure sensor has noticed it and there is an alarm generated, still because my frequency of handshaking is say 5 minutes, I cannot get any data for 5 minutes. So you need to work out with the scheme in which when there is an alarm, your RTU shall immediately start giving the signals to the gateway or to the base station. So these are the challenges which we face usually in handling such agricultural IoT systems for the community-based irrigation projects for 1,000 hectares of area. Next slide, sir. So you need to have a high-tech solution. When we say wiring is not possible, we need to go for radio communication, RF and GSM possibility. You need to check for the GSM possibilities. Next slide, sir. Now, the solution which we worked out, there were two options. Like when you put thousands of RTUs in the field, in typically the case of Ramthal, there are almost 6,000 RTUs working in the field. So how they will communicate with each other? One of the option was going for star topology or point-to-point communication. So when we go say point-to-point communication, that means from base station or from gateway, each and every RTU shall be connected, and each and every RTU will get the signal, separate signal or connectivity from the base station or from the gateway. But then in the field area, in the remote field area, it is very difficult. You need to otherwise put several gateways, and that is also not economically feasible to put the several gateways across the field. So there may be a possibility that some of the nodes which are very far away in the field may not be in the connectivity. So we have selected, or we have gone for the mesh topology. Sir, can you please click on the next? So mesh topology is like is a bit different from the star topology. Star topology is point-to-point communication, whereas in mesh topology, each and every RTU, they try to form a mesh, and every RTU will repeat the signals, and the base station or the gateway will find out the shortest possible routes. And if in any case, if one of the RTU is not working or fall down or something happens, still it will try to find out another best possible route for the communication. So mesh topology has its own advantages and limitations. So with the mesh topology, you can go for continuous communication. You can assure that signal is getting received by the RTUs. But then mesh topology is a battery hungry, like it's a power hungry thing. Continuously, because you want each and every RTU to repeat the signal. That means each and every RTU is to be in a wake up mode all the time. So power requirement for mesh topology is very high. So that is why we have gone for solar power solar power supply for these RTUs. Next slide, sir. So when there is no electricity available, we have constructed the RTU which has built-in solar panel. The solar panel is of 4 watt, and with the 4 watt panel, we are charging a lithium long life lithium-ion battery, 3.6 volt, 19 Ah, with a minimum autonomy of 3 days. These are the requirements. Now, dear friends, why I want to explain this, because people or the students who wants to venture into agricultural IoT area, which is a huge area and has got a big potential. But while before entering into this area, we all should know what are the limitations, what are the possibilities of venturing in this area. So the RTU which we built, or we developed, has got a built-in solar panel, lithium-ion battery, and minimum 3 days of autonomy. Because in the field area, in the rainy season, in the cloudy days, when there is no, like the battery is not getting charged fully, still your system shall be in operation. So minimum 3 days of autonomy we have considered while designing these systems. Next slide, sir. So how the system is working, there are several users of the system, administrator, they may be farmer, there may be government officers. They are all connected to a cloud, The software is placed on the cloud, ERICare software, which we called, and there are RTUs in the field. There are thousands of RTUs in the field. These RTUs, the walls and the sensors are connected to these RTUs, and these RTUs are connected to the communicating to the base station or the gateway through RF, through the radio network. We are using a free band radio network, 865 to 867 ISM band, which is available in India, which is a free band available in India. And base station has got a GSM communication possibility. So we put, as per the service providers availability, we put a SIM card there. At this moment, it is a 2G communication, but in the new versions, we are now going for 4G communication as well. So overall architecture is like the RTUs are communicating through the base station to the cloud. The administrator will prepare the schedules, irrigation schedules will be uploaded on the cloud. This at the cloud level, this irrigation schedule will be assorted, and each and every base station, because there are several base stations in the field area, each and every base station will receive its own schedule. At the base station level, again there will be a sorting, RTU wise sorting, and each and every RTU will gets its schedule. And the beauty of these RTUs is these RTUs are programmable RTUs. That means once the schedule is transferred to these RTUs, RTU will operate as per the schedule. Like suppose there are 4 walls operated in this RTU, in one of the RTU, and the schedule is given that wall number 1 is to operated at 8 o'clock in the morning, then second is to be 10 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So once the schedule is available with the RTU, even if the communication failed down due to any reason, and because in the field area this is always possible that RTU may fall down, or something happens, or GSM communication may broke down in the remote areas suddenly. So even if there is no communication, still RTU has got its own schedule and can operate the walls as per the given schedule, unless and until there is a change in schedule. Every minute RTU is doing handshaking with the base station every minute, and every minute the data, if there is any change in schedule, the data is transferred to the RTU, and every minute the data, the input data from the pressure or flow meter is transferred to the base station, which we can see on the which user can see. So this is about the overall architecture of the system. Can you go for next slide, please? So what are the components we have developed to achieve this? This is ERIConnect master, or we call it as a base station. This has got like a GSM communication, a GSM antenna. You can see a GSM antenna as well as RF antenna. RF, so it can communicate with cloud server, and also it will communicate to the RTUs which are assigned to it. So one base station or one master can communicate with maximum 100 number of RTUs. Next slide, sir. Click on, yeah. And then these are the RTUs. We call them as ERIConnect Pro. And why Pro is programmable. So there are different versions of the RTUs. 8 digital output with no inputs, 4 digital outputs, 8 digital output with 4 analog and 4 digital inputs, and one RTU is only with 20 digital outputs. As per the field's requirement, these are the different versions we have prepared. And each and every RTU has got some blinkers, LED blinkers, which can by seeing through it, because these RTUs are installed at almost 4 meter height, because you want to open it for the solar power availability. So the troubleshooting or the technician has to see how the RTUs are communicating with the base station. Through the blinkers he can see. And there are handheld device which we have developed. These handheld device are required by the troubleshooters, the technicians, because if something happens in the field, these are actually the portable RTUs which he can take with him, can communicate with the base station in that area, and can operate the walls manually, or can open and close the systems manually. For the troubleshooting purpose, these are the handheld devices. Next slide, sir. Now, when we talk about this systems, validation is very important aspect of it. So we have validated the system because how far you can communicate, because on paper with a clear line of sight with 865 megahertz communication RF communication, you can go even 10 kilometers, but that is with a clear line of sight. But in agricultural area, where I was talking about green field availability, which absorbs the RF, or big trees in between, or undulations of the agricultural area, you cannot go for 10 kilometers. Line of sight is hardly possible for more than a kilometer. So we have validated it in the agricultural area, actual agricultural area, where there were undulations, where there was a green field, and you can see 1 kilometer was easily possible even with the green fields availability, even with the big trees in between. So 1 kilometer communication from one RTU to another RTU is possible. Next, can you click on, sir? Again, we tested it for several RTUs in a line to observe that how far they can communicate, and you can see we have tested it for 6 kilometer range, and they can easily communicate up to 6 kilometer. So with the several hops, like here it is almost 6 to 7 hoppings, but in the actual or in the practical situation, we have restricted ourselves to 2 hops only, because more than 2 hoppings, theoretically there can be n number of hops. There is no limitation. You can go on hopping and you can go up to 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers chain, but then your signal strength decreases as you go for number of hops. So we tried to avoid that, and we have restricted ourselves only for 2 hops. So 2 hops is like is around only 1.5 to 2 kilometers maximum. So we restricted ourselves to a radius of 1 to 1.5 kilometers around the base station in actual field areas. Can you click on, sir? So these are again several trials which we did at our factory locations, that how far we can go. Next slide, sir. And this trial is for the undulations, or because in the field area there is always a possibility that there may be some river or nala in between, or undulations in between. So you need to check how the radio communication would be. These are the Omni antenna which we have used. So they will communicate all around from all the sides, 360 degree. But there are patch antennas also available if you want a specific communication in unidirection. In one direction, patch antennas can also be used. Next slide, sir. Can you click on, sir? So this was the overall scheme, and this scheme was implemented in this project, Ramthal project, almost 4 years back, which was operating successfully. But then we learned a lot. I want to explain you the product development cycle, how it happens, what was the thought process initially, and when we actually implement with the given thought process. Initial thought process was wiring is not possible, power supply is to be redundant, so we went for built-in solar panel with the RTU, RTU with it. So that actually forced us to hang the RTU almost at the 4-meter height. But then we started facing, when the scheme was actually implemented on the field, we started facing several issues which are very interesting. In a product development cycle, these issues, to learn through these issues is very important. The first issue which we faced was theft and vandalism. The moment people saw the solar panel on the RTU, they thought that this is a good thing, like they can sell the solar panel, or probably they can make some mobile charging system with the solar panel. So they started thefting the solar panel. But this was built in, so rather they broke the RTU and they took away the solar panel and the batteries inside. Sometimes some like bhed bakri charane wale, these people, they just by sitting and throwing the stones on the solar panel and breaking the RTUs, that also happened. And that was a major issue which we observed. Sometimes, even though the boxes were IP65, we observed the leakages issue, water ingress issue in the box, because it is open to atmospheric condition. In the heavy rainfall conditions, 3 years back there was a heavy rainfall in Karnataka area, like it was unseen that time, and we observed water ingress in several RTUs, and then we observed that this was due to the assembling issues in the factory. And if the assembling is not proper, some burrs are remain there, or it is not tightened properly, water slowly ingressed inside, and then they damage the electronics inside. So these are the issues. Then due to the built-in solar panel, we were forced to put the RTUs on the height. So we need to put the long poles. We need to search for the shadow-free area because solar panel is there. And you do not know when the farmer will put or sow a big trunk trees, because sometimes these RTUs, or most of the time the walls which are installed are on the corner of the fields. They are not inside the fields. So on the corner of the fields, usually farmer go for big trunk trees. So suddenly the shadow will come on the solar panel. There is a difficulty in maintaining the antenna. The antenna sometimes falls down due to wind or due to some vandalisms, and they then stop communicating. So these are the challenges or the problems which faced. Then in some areas, typically in Sangli area, the height of the RTU was 4 meter, and as soon as the sugar can grow up to 4 meter, due to the green cover, the RTU stop communicating. So we need to again go increase the height of the RTU. Then in that case, the farmer is not very happy, because you need to stop, you need to put another pole, increase the height, and all those things. So these are the problems which faced. And you can see, in this photograph, you can see a fence around. We tried several things, like we put the fencing wire across the pole, but that was also in vain. They pull down the pole, and then they save the RTU or they damage the RTUs. Then we adopted a situation where you can get SMS. 5 people used to get the SMS as soon as someone dismantles or disconnect the RTU. But then in a remote area of reaching to the location itself will take almost 15-20 minutes or half an hour. By the time the theft or the person who is damaging the RTU will run away. So it was also in vain. Then we developed a very innovative patented anti-theft solar panel. So we added some electronics with the solar panel, and as soon as someone removes the solar panel, it will seize itself. As soon as it will get disconnected from the RTU, it is always in communication with the RTU. There is an ID, internal ID setting, and as soon as the communication broke down, the solar panel will seize itself completely, unless and until you again reconnect and again refeed the ID setting to it. So we thought that this will work, because the solar panel is of no use. Probably the theft will avoid, but still the thefting was happening there on the field. So this rather forced us to rethink our development strategies, and then we started developing new RTUs, completely new concept, which I would like to explain, sir. Next slide, please. So we went for a built-in battery, the non-rechargeable battery operated RTUs, in which the battery life shall be minimum 5 years. So we designed a battery accordingly, and this was actually only for wherein you need to operate the digital outputs, because digital output are latching type of outputs, and they does not require much of the power. So maximum power requirement is only for the communication. So we tried to restrict the communication as well. We increased from 1 minute to 15 minutes of communication interval. And we built a new RTU in which there is no solar panel, there is a built-in battery, built-in Bluetooth. So earlier RTU was installed at 4 meter height. So if you want to reset the RTU, someone has to go with the ladders, climb up, remove the RTU fuse, reset it, reset the ID settings. That was a difficult task. So we put a built-in Bluetooth. So with the mobile app, you can communicate with the RTU, and you can do the ID setting or testing or troubleshooting. Then instead of using the mesh topology with 865 to 867 megahertz ISM band, we have gone for LoRa technology, because one of the challenge was, we do not want to put the RTU at the height now. So we want to put the RTU near the wall, which can be hidden under the ground. So when you put the RTU or radio antenna at the ground level, if the soil is wet, if there is a green cover around the RTU, around the antenna, it would be difficult sometimes, to get the communication done. So that is why we have adopted LoRa communication. LoRa is a long-range communication technology with which we can easily communicate with the RTU even though it is at the below the ground. Typically, LoRa is used for the 24/7 water supply schemes, wherein most of the drinking water meters are in the basement of the buildings. So LoRa is a very good technology applicable for that requirements. And we designed the internal antenna. Earlier the antenna was an external antenna which was seen easily, but then we specially designed an internal antenna which was hidden inside the RTU. So next slide, please. And the design was also compact. You can see the similar RTU, the earlier RTU, which is 4DO digital output RTU, and this RTU, you can see the size difference. This is hardly a very small, very compact design, very compact RTU. Next slide, sir. It has got a touch switch, touch sensitive switch. So troubleshooting, or the person has to go there, touch his hand, a capacitive sensors are there, and then he can get connected or can be paired with his mobile. The Bluetooth will be activated, because you cannot keep the Bluetooth continuously on because there is no separate power available. Then LED will start blinking, so that it will communicate. You can get to know that the RTU is now communicating with the Bluetooth app through the Bluetooth, and there is a RF connector inside. Next slide, sir. And this is the top side actually of the RTU. Next slide. And this is the bottom side of the RTU, wherein you can, these are the connectors where you can connect your wiring. These connectors are also sealed connectors, and you can connect your wirings. So typically this RTU is IP67 rating RTU. So even if you put it in the chamber, and even though the chamber is filled with the water, still this RTU, there will not be any water ingress inside this RTU. Next slide, sir. And one of the beauty while designing this RTU is, like, apart from 4 digital inputs, we added 4 apart from 4 digital outputs, we added 4 built-in digital inputs for this. And why these 4 digital, and how these 4 digital inputs are used? Very interestingly, typically when you operate a control wall through the RTU electronically, you provide a signal. And it will operate a latching solenoid wall, and then latching solenoid wall ultimately will convert the electrical signal into the hydraulic one, and hydraulically your wall is operated. While doing so, sometimes if the solenoid is not operated, if some dirt is accumulated in the hydraulic channels of this RTU, or due to any reason, if your wall is not operated, there was no chance that you can see, because electronically when you operate a wall, you can see on your dashboard that wall is in operation, but actually practically in the field wall was not in the operation. We saw this, we experienced this kind of issues. So we developed a magnetic switch. We put it in the diaphragm of the wall, and as soon as the diaphragm moves little bit, the magnetic switch will change its position from NO to NC, and immediately we call it as a rather wall confirmation sensing. So immediately it will confirm that wall is in operation. So what is the advantage you get with this? Is like you are now confirming that wall is really in operation, and not only electronically, but actually water is going through the wall. Second thing is, in a farmer field, some farmer will always try to thief the water. So they will learn how to open up the wall, and they will open up the wall manually by pulling out the tubing or something like that. If there is no schedule for the wall and the magnetic switch has given a signal from converting from NO to NC, that means RTU will immediately recognize that without any schedule the water is going through the wall. That means water thefting is happening. Immediately it will give some alarms. It will generate the alarm. Immediately some person can access to that field, and we can observe that okay, the farmer is now taking out the water, or what is happening there in the field. So these RTUs are now of two types. One is, we call it as ERI Connect LNR. LNR stands for LoRa, non-rechargeable. So there is a non-rechargeable battery inside and communicating through LoRa communication. It has got DC latch, digital inputs, 4 digital inputs, one special digital input for theft detection. So if someone disconnect this RTU, immediately there will be a thefting alarms. There is a low energy BLE Bluetooth built-in battery with 5 years of life, and IP66 we declare, even though it stands for IP67, as a safe side we declare it as a IP66. Next slide, sir. But then if you want to connect analog sensors with these RTUs, which are power hungry sensors, you cannot go for built-in non-rechargeable power source. You have to go for solar power or a rechargeable source. So we have designed another RTU which we call it as a ERI Connect LR LoRa rechargeable RTU. So it has got 4 digital outputs, 2 digital inputs, and 2 analog inputs. So you can connect pressure sensors, you can connect digital rain sensors or water meters or flow meters or any kind of NONC type of sensors with it. So these are the 2 nodal RTU which are developed, and we have designed a separate gateway. We call it as a now ERI Smart LoRa gateway. So with the ERI Smart LoRa gateway, this is a private LoRa, because LoRa is available through LoRaWAN. But then LoRaWAN is like a proprietary network. You have to hire like Tata or Reliance or someone else, the service providers. So your data goes to the service provider server, and then through the APIs you get the data, and then you need to pay for this for utilizing his LoRaWAN network. So rather than that, we have designed our own proprietary private LoRa network there, which is connected to our own server. We have designed our own communication protocol from the RTU to gateway and from gateway to server, and we have developed a separate logical things for the bidirectional data traffic. LoRa is a very good way to communicate for the long range, but LoRa, it's a small bandwidth. You cannot throw large data packets at a time through LoRa. So you have to subdivide the data packets into small data packets, and then you have to send those data packets, and still you have to take care that the data packets shall not lost in data congestion. Because when thousands of RTUs are connected and when thousands of sensors are sending their data at a time, there is always a chance that there is a communication congestion or some data may be lost. So we have taken special care, but we have used some Amazon services, Q servers and all those services, so that data will not be lost. So next slide, please. Now this is all about how the hardware is modified and rebuilt to through the learning lessons which we learned in one of the community based projects, and now this new hardware is now getting implemented in several other projects which we are implementing in Karnataka as well as in Madhya Pradesh. Now I would like to talk a little bit about the software which through which we handle this IoT network. Next slide, sir. We call it as a ERICare global software. And I was talking about there are several users of this software. So government officer wants to see, he wants just to view what is happening in the field, which wall is in operation, which farmers are getting water and all those things. End user farmer may be interested in his own field. So he wants to see when he's going to get the water, because the systems are 24 hours operating. So there is always a chance that some farmer may get water in the 12 o'clock in the night, 2 o'clock in the night. So the farmer who is getting water at 12 o'clock in the night in 1 week is staggered to 12 o'clock in the afternoon in the next week. So we do the scheduling likewise. So we inform the farmer that when he is going, when his schedule is, so that he can, you know, plan for his intercultivation operations in between or fertilizer applications in between. Then admin has to do the schedules, continuously monitor and troubleshoot. Then project engineer who is there on the project site, he has to modify the schedules, change the schedules or list out the farmers and all those things. Field technician has to observe for the any troubleshoot, any alarming conditions. Alarms are also subdivided into several categories, because some alarms are very common alarms which are not very severe, but some alarms like pipeline breakages and all those things are very severe or serious type of alarms. So some alarms you can get notified on the dashboard, but some alarms you get SMS, or for some specific alarms you can go for a telephonic calls, pre-recorded telephonic calls even. So these are the various different alarm levels. Next slide, sir. So what is the advantage you get with this IoT based irrigation application? Of course, we talked about it. So several sensors are connected for real-time monitoring of the system. Even though I'm saying real-time monitoring, still there is a lag of, say, it is a user settable lag, but usually we prefer around 10 minutes of lag to save the battery power. Then provide flexibility of monitoring the systems. You can monitor the system like we monitor all the systems by sitting in Jalgaon. Then less electrical equipments are required. System safety. Offer flexible access to multiple users at a time. So farmers can get access or many users can access. And backup of the data is very important, because government also wants to, you know, have the backup of the data and wants to observe and analyze through the data. Next slide, sir. So what are the features of this Irricare global software? It has got unlimited outputs and inputs. You can put, you know, even though one gateway can control 100 RTUs, you can put number of gateways in a specific irrigating area, in a command area. So practically there is no limitation for inputs and outputs in the field. These RTUs are programmable RTUs, so you can transfer the programs for next 30 days or something like that. Theft alarm is also one of the features. Next slide. Unlimited user access. So like in the typically the case of Karnataka project, 7,000 farmer has got access. We send with their mobile numbers is registered as a username, and they get a password on their phone through SMS. All the government officers, authorized government officers has got access, technicians, and these access are controlled. We control their access. Like someone will get only view access, someone will get view and edit access. Someone we restrict them for the area. Like someone can see only his field. Someone can see typically a zone or a block area or a pumping station area. So that you can restrict easily through this software. Next slide, sir. Then on the dashboard there are multiple screens you can see. So if you want to observe multiple blocks at a time, maximum 2 blocks you can see at a time, and multiple, like you want to observe the pressure fluctuations, at the same time you want to observe which wall is in operation, and you can see several colors here, like blue color stands for like it is in the irrigation is in the operation. Yellow color is like irrigation is in operation but someone has manually operated is. Gray color is now no irrigation. So you can see a bar there that what is the status of irrigation, when the next wall will be in operation. At the bottom side you can see the alarms, several alarms which are generated, and as per the severity of the alarms one can observe. Weather station data can be observed on the right hand side corner of the screen. So entire dashboard is divided into 4 different parts, and 4 parts can be divided. Then project configuration is very easy, like project name, how many RTUs, and all those things can be put in. the country which you want to, because one of the project we are doing in Nigeria, so you need to put the Nigeria as a country because there is a time difference. So when you do some irrigation scheduling for him, it shall be uploaded as per his time schedules. Next, sir. Then very innovative concept of global library we have used. The global library means, if you want to use a sensor which is repeatedly used in a field, in the network area, or repeatedly has to be used in several other projects, typically pressure sensors, or flow sensors. Most of the project uses pressure sensors or flow sensors. So each and every time you do not need to configure them. You can download through a global library a pre-configured pressure sensors, and you can say make it applicable to all the pressure sensors which I am using in this field. Or you can go for a crop library wherein you can add the crops and everything. So this is called as a global library. These are the alarms. I already talked about the alarms. Go for next slide, sir. And even though through global library, if you make some sensors applicable, still if you want to change the configuration of some typical sensors, you can go to that sensor and you can edit it. These are the different alarm levels. Next slide, sir. I already talked about it. All the events are logged into the event logbooks. There are different event logbooks. If you want to see all the events, or only the wall operation events, or only the sensor events, so different events can be logged in, and you can observe or you can download those events. Handled events, like if you want to observe that how the handled was operated, because when you provide a handle to a troubleshooting or to a field person, he may misuse it. He may allow a farmer, he can open up any wall, so he may allow a farmer to get the extra water. So that you can observe through the handled events. Next slide, sir. You can set your own rules, like if the pressure is high and flow is low. So this is typically a situation that means the walls are not fully operated. So you can set your role that if the pressure is high and flow is low, then open up or stop the pump, or open up some bypass walls. Or if the pressure is low and flow is high, so this can be a pipeline breakage situation, so generate an alarm. So you can set your own rules as per your requirements. Next slide, sir. You can do manual overrides. So manual overrides can be done like immediate overrides. Immediately you want to start or stop, or you can schedule the override. Suppose you know that from on 10th to 12th of this month there is a maintenance schedule for this specific area. So I do not want walls to get operated in that specific area. So you can schedule it, and automatically the walls will be closed down in that area. Next slide, sir. There's a beautiful user management. I already talked about this user management. How can I assign the areas, and how can I assign the authorization to the different users? Next slide, sir. So this is also, adding the roles. I can add n number of roles. A farmer is a role. Admin is a role. Government officer is a role. So you can generate your own roles, and you can give some authorization to this role, that whether he can be only view only, or edit also, or whatever it may be. Then we know that farmers do not use smartphones, so we are providing SMS facilities to each and every farmer. Like, farmer wants to know when his wall will be in operation. So before 10 minutes before operation of his wall, he will get an SMS. And weekly, he gets a weekly schedule. Every Sunday, he will get a weekly schedule that for this week, his wall operation is scheduled on this and this time. So that is also available. And before operating the wall, he will get an SMS. And after stopping the wall, also he will get an SMS. So we are using feature phone as a way of communication with the farmers. And you can generate unlimited schedules and sequences to operate the walls. Next slide. Next slide, sir. So this I was talking about, a community-based agricultural IoT projects and what are the problems and what are the, how the product development cycle is there in this kind of projects, community. But what about the individual farmers? All the projects are still not community-based irrigation projects. IoT still can be used for the individual farmers as well. So we have developed a software platform called Jain Logic, which can be used by the individual farmer. So we provide data-driven agronomical insights to the subscriber. We collect the data, we analyze the data, and we provide some useful insights to the farmers. Next slide, sir. So what are the data which we collect? We collect weather data through the weather station, either through APIs or through the individual weather station installed there. Soil data, soil moisture data, how the soil moisture is changing. Crop data, what type of crop, when it is sown, and what is the growth stage of the crop. If required, satellite imageries can be analyzed or attached with it. And then growers data, growers profile and all those things. And then we process this through Jain Logic platform. And then we give the insights to the user about weather forecasting, prediction of the soil moisture, or prediction of the irrigation to be done, because the irrigation is depend on the soil moisture availability. When there is enough soil moisture available, you do not need to irrigate. So we analyze the soil moisture through a machine learning algorithm. We predict that when this soil moisture will be depleted down and when the farmer shall irrigate and how much he shall irrigate. Then we also add the fertilizer requirements depending on his fertilizer input given by the farmers. We advise him that what type of fertilizer he shall use and when he shall go for it. So this is a typical example of monitoring solutions. Monitoring is still a very new business proposition in India, but in US or in Australia, in developed countries, they go for monitoring solutions rather than control solutions, control and monitoring. Because in this, like in United States, where the legal requirements are very stringent, any provider do not want to get into the control solutions, because if you open up the walls and if something has gone wrong, or if you provide him some insights and if it has gone wrong, then the farmer can sue you. This is not the case, at least in India, but that is why in these countries they go for monitoring solutions. So what this monitoring solutions is, as I was talking about, they put the soil moisture sensors, they put the pressure switch on the irrigation lines, they collect the data from the weather station, they analyze all this data and provide the farmer the input about like when he shall irrigate and how much he shall irrigate. So these are only recommendations, and we are not operating directly. He has to go there and operate the walls manually or by himself, or he has to put the schedule in his individual controllers. Next slide, sir. So this is how the soil moisture data you get, in the different soil layers, because usually the effective root zone is at 30 to 40 centimeter below the top soil. So you need to monitor that data, that what is the soil moisture level at this given depth. So we continuously monitor the soil moisture data and we give the insights. So you look, the soil moisture data looks like this. Next slide, sir. Apart from that, we also provide some monitoring solutions for filters and for the irrigation systems. We monitor pressure and flow conditions in the systems, because pressure and flow, these are the very important health parameters through which we monitor. Now, what are the challenges? We already discussed about various practical challenges to use IoT in the agriculture. So power is one of the major challenges. So if you want to develop some solutions for agricultural IoT, power is very, very important aspect. Prices of the sensors, of course, can be dealt with. Communication is still a very important aspect, because we are still using the free band. We cannot go for purchased band frequency. but 865 is still a weak band for agricultural applications. You cannot go for very long ranges with this band. So there is a need for separate reserved RF band for agriculture in India. Theft vandalism we talked about. But apart from that, very important aspect of development of agricultural IoT systems is accessibility. The solution which you are developing, is it accessible by the farmer, by the end user? Scalability. The solution which you are developed, suppose a solution is developed for specifically for banana crop. Is this solution is applicable for banana crop in Jalgaon district? Is the same solution is applicable for banana crop in Tamil Nadu? Is the same solution applicable for banana crop in Uttar Pradesh? Because climatological conditions are different there. So the scalability is also important. Reliability is at most important factor, because the solution which you are providing shall be reliable enough, because farmer will take some decision based on your insights, when to irrigate, how much fertilizer is to be given, what pesticide is to be applicable to be applied, when to apply the pesticides. So if your solution is not reliable, sometimes you know what happens actually. The technological people, the IT people, and typically electronics technical people, they develop some very good nice solutions, but they do not know agriculture, and they try to apply these solutions on the ground. They fail. Half of the startups in India in ag IoT sectors are failing because of this, because they do not have proper agricultural insights or knowledge. So that is very much, so that gap shall be filled. So whenever you are deciding to go for an ag IoT solutions, you need to have an expert agronomical people engaged with you for the solution which you are developing. If you are going for a pesticide application solution, someone expert from pesticide shall get engaged with you, so that you can provide a reliable solution, not a very, I would say, I will always call it as a half-cooked solution. And one of the important aspect is liability of the solution which you are giving, because you are dealing with an unorganized sector who rather go on faith rather than signing the contracts and pressing the I agree buttons on the software side. So even though legally you are safe, still if your solution is not properly reliable or getting implemented in the field, farmer will not believe on your solutions, and you cannot really get success in the solution which you are providing. So these are the challenges you need to face when you are thinking of developing some solutions in agricultural IoT field. It is different from industrial IoT field. In IoT, in industrial IoT, everything is under control. The person who is operating is a skilled person. You can use reliable sensors. The power supply is reliable, available continuously all the time. So this is the situation is under control for the industrial application. But agricultural application is altogether different. It is a remote area, power is not available, communication is an issue. The end user is a beginner, no eyes, he cannot, he's also not organized properly. Agricultural knowledge differs from place to place. So these are different challenges which you face. So I think I have briefly touched upon the various agricultural IoT solutions which we deal with, and which probably can be, I hope, can be a guideline for you people to go for new projects or agricultural IoT solutions which you people are thinking. It is definitely a big sector. Agriculture is a backbone of our economy, and if we are doing something for the farming community, it is a very noble work which we must do, but with keeping in the mind of all these challenges and the requirements of the agriculture. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please go on. I'm open for the questions, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now I have allowed the participants to unmute them. I request them, if you have a questions, they can raise their hand so that we can allow one by one to ask the questions to our expert. There are few questions in the chat box itself. We'll go through that question first, sir.
Okay.
There is a Mr. Vilas Patil is there. He asked a question that if you converted canal system into a pipeline network, then what about the water percolation?
Yeah, surely it is a very good question. See, pipeline network will not have any percolation issue, and you are not expecting percolation from the canal network. Canal networks are not meant for rainwater harvesting or recharging purpose. So percolation is not required. Rather it shall be avoided. So you are getting benefit of the pipeline, that there is no percolation through the pipeline. I hope I answered this question.
Sir, actually the question is about, if there is no percolation, then how the groundwater recharge will take place? That is the question actually.
Surely, and that's what I said, that the canal network is not meant for groundwater recharging purpose. If you want to do groundwater recharge, there are several other measures. And overall, recharging the topsoil is not a groundwater recharge. Usually, canals run on the topsoil, or you can say an unconfined layer of the aquifer. So rather than recharging the groundwater, it degrades the soil which is around because of the waterlogging issues. Punjab is a live example for all of us. A lot of water seep down or percolate down through the canal network, and which degrade the almost thousands of hectares of land around the on the periphery of the canal network.
Sir, I have one question.
Yeah, please.
Sir, is there any soil moisture probes used in the ROTs in the field? Because they can provide you the soil moisture estimation, so that you can provide the exact amount of water that is required for the user. No?
Yeah, sure. This is a good question. There are several soil moisture sensors available in the market. Multi-level soil moisture sensors are nowadays quite popular. Like, you can measure the soil moisture at every 10 centimeter depth, typically within the root zone area or for that. But apart from these analog type of sensors, you can go for even digital type of soil moisture sensors, which can provide, you can set the soil moisture requirements. Like, once the soil moisture reaches to 50% level, something shall be triggered on, like irrigation system shall be triggered on. That kind of digital soil moisture sensors are also available. Apart from that, soil moisture sensor itself is a topic. There are frequency domain type sensors, or time domain type of sensors, TDR type of sensors, different type of sensors available. Even though sometimes if you do not use a physical probe in the ground, still through satellite imagery you can analyze the soil moisture. Nowadays even Government of India has also started giving that data. It is called as microwave data. So through this, there is a special band of microwave with each satellite. Usually if you want this data free of cost, then you get this data through Sentinel-2 or something like that. So it is called as active and passive microwave sensing, through which you can analyze the soil moisture variations in the field without putting any physical probe. But it is always better to have a physical probe combined with the satellite data for the confirmation. Does that answer your question, Vilaji?
Yes, sir. But I'm asking whether do you use any kind of soil moisture probes in your experiment at Karnataka?
Soil microbe? Are you talking about soil microbe?
Soil moisture probes, soil moisture sensors.
Yeah, we used several soil moisture probes. To just name it, we have used Centec soil moisture probe. Then we are used Aerometer soil moisture probes. It is a single point soil moisture or tensiometer type of soil moisture probe. Centec was FDR type of soil moisture probe. And we are also now in a process of development of soil moisture probe, which will be working on very innovative concept, which we call it as a portable soil. Rather than portable, it is a low-cost soil moisture proof, which we are developing through some Japanese companies, with the help of some Japanese companies. Probably by the end of this year, it will be released in the market, which is up to 40 centimeter depth and which is a low-cost soil moisture probe.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any questions from other participants? Okay, if you do not have any questions, we'll stop here. So, from the organizers of this faculty development program and the Institute Sri Sant Gajanan Maharaj College of Engineering, I would like to thank Mr. Abhijit Joshi for his wonderful and knowledgeable lecture on agriculture IoT for research to root. He has gave detailed issue challenges regarding how the IoT can be implemented in agriculture. The project that you have shown gives us the clear-cut idea about how any IoT product or application can be implemented for any agriculture application. I hope this will help the faculties, the research scholars for working in agriculture area to develop their own products for agriculture application. So with this, I would like to thank all the participants.
I would also like to thank all the participants and specifically Dr. Praveen Markle, Vikas ji, Sumani sir, and entire College of Engineering staff and Atal FDP program organizers for giving me the opportunity. If anyone of is thinking in mind to do something in agricultural IoT sector, and if you think that we can help you in that sector, you can communicate with me anytime. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now with this, we will end this session. Thank you all of you for joining this session. The next session will start at 1:30 p.m. The next session is by Mr. Arvind Mahapatra. He is from Netwin Technologies from Nashik. He is going to deliver a talk on how to implement IoT for homes, resorts, and he will give you the already application developed for home automation. So thank you all of you. We'll join at again 1:30. Thank you, sir. Thank you all of you.